So Donald Trump has put a tremendous amount of pressure on elected Republicans to do something about the cases against him. And I don't know how much they can do. And also, by the way, I don't know how much they really want to support him on this, because I think enough of them are smart enough to know the closer we're affiliated with him, the more likely we are to keep getting giant losses in elections. So I think a lot of them quietly are like, Jesus, just lock this guy up already and let us move past him. I think DeSantis is number one on that list because he thinks he could be president, particularly if Trump ends up getting locked up. So this article came out the other day. This is in NBC News. They say a shutdown wouldn't halt Trump's trials, so Republicans seek to rein in his prosecutors. What they want to do, we'll walk through it here in a second, is defund the prosecutors going after Trump. That's such rich irony. The people who are going after Democrats and the left for defund the police, and they're like, back the blue, law and order. And then now, because they're going after Trump, it's the exact opposite. It's like, oh my God, defund him ASAP. Federal criminal proceedings are exempted from shutdowns, but GOP House members want to use a must-pass funding bill to defund or limit law enforcement investigating Trump. They say 4 criminal indictments of Donald Trump have ignited his followers and spurred his House Republican allies to try and use the upcoming government funding deadline of September 30th as leverage to undermine the prosecutions. The bad news for them, a government shutdown wouldn't halt the criminal proceedings against the former president. Trump indictments in New York and Georgia would not be affected, while his federal indictments for allegedly mishandling classified documents and for his role in January 6 are criminal matters that have been exempted from shutdowns in the past. The Justice Department said in a 2021 memo that in a shutdown, criminal litigation will continue without interruption as an activity essential to the safety of human life and the protection of property. The Justice Department's plans assume that the judicial branch remains fully operational, which it has said in the past can carry on for weeks in the event of a funding lapse. Special Counsel Jack Smith's office is funded by a permanent, indefinite appropriation for independent counsels, the department said in a statement of expenditure. Given its separate funding source, the special counsel would not be impacted by a shutdown and could run off of allocations for previous years. As a result, Republicans are looking at ways to insert provisions in government funding legislation that would hinder federal and state prosecutors who have secured indictments for Trump based on unproven claims that he's being politically targeted. Let me just pause there. Of course this is political. Now, it also happens to be correct. He committed 91 crimes, and they're going after him for 91 crimes. But if Trump didn't run for president again, there's a very high likelihood they just wouldn't have brought the charges because they feel like he's out of sight, out of mind, forget about it. We're not going to break the precedent of not going after former presidents. Yeah, so it is political because they're like, well, now he gives us no choice but to go after him. But they should have gone after him no matter what. So I think it both is political, but it's also correct. The demands spearheaded by hard-right Republicans have sparked internal party divisions over reining in law enforcement power and will struggle to pass the House. The Justice Bill is one of 2 appropriation measures the House GOP hasn't yet passed out of 12 total, a Democratic aide noted, which could signify splits about how to proceed, and Democrats who control the Senate and the White House are pushing back on those calls to derail law enforcement as interference in Trump's cases. The tension looms over negotiations to keep the government funded as Congress returns next week. The main takeaway from this story, they are so desperate. And you see this with Trump too. Every time Trump goes out there and he melts down on Truth Social and he does these unhinged posts against, everybody and their grandma who's ever wronged him. I think Trump knows that in a court of law, he's in serious trouble, so he's trying to win in the court of public opinion. And his way of doing that is to be relentless and to do the same talking points over and over and say stuff like deranged Jack Smith, election interference. So that's his way to show that he's desperate. And the Republicans, I think it's because they're mostly under pressure from Trump. They're like, hey, we'll try to find a way to help you out here to defund the prosecutors who are going after you. I don't even know if there is a way they could seriously do that. And also, it just further embarrasses them and ties them at the hip to this absolute psychopath who's responsible for their last 3 election losses. So in a weird way, it's like, all right, by all means, go ahead. I'm your Huckleberry. You want to go for it? You want to try to defund the prosecutors in a naked attempt to protect Trump? Let me know how that works out for you, because there would be consequences for that at the ballot box. There's no doubt about it, man. And so, will they actually follow through and do it? I don't know. Who's to say? Listen. It's not like it was naked threats the last 3 times or whatever there was a government shutdown thing. There were times where they did follow through with it. They followed through with it under Obama. So I could see them doing it. I think the protections might be strong enough to keep everybody out of trouble here. In other words, the fact that this is like a necessary function of government that basically under no circumstances can be defunded, I think that may end up winning the day here. This will be a good litmus test for just how cucked the Republicans are to Trump still. Because if they do find a way to defund it, or they start the process and they get the ball down the field quite a bit, then we still know that not only does he have a stranglehold on the party base, which he kind of does still, but then you'll know that he still has his spell cast over, a lot of these Republican Congress people. And they're still actually with him and not just virtue signaling because they want to protect their own asses in elections. Like I said, rock in a hard place. It's like Republican candidates can't win primaries unless they suck off Trump. But they also can't win general elections if they don't suck off Trump. So in other words, like, he helps them in the primaries. It's the only way they can win a primary, but then they always lose in the general the more Trumpy they are. So it's total rock in a hard place. But anyway, here we go. Now they're threatening defunding the prosecutors who are just doing their job and going after a criminal. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.